It's Ghada.
It's Amina, and welcome to Jetlagged Politics.
I hear you asking, what's Jetlagged Politics? It is a podcast by Amina and myself to discuss everything that falls under the umbrella of politics, from global events to what we eat and everything in between. Amina and I live in completely different corners of the world, putting an 8 hour difference between us.
Different countries, different perspectives. We are at the intersection of fast and slow news and try to make sense of it.
And today we are covering will be arguably the most important election of the year. So, where should we start, Amina?
Let us start with the assassination attempt of Donald Trump because it's a pivotal moment that has reshaped the political landscape. A lot of things have happened since, but it remains a historical turning point.
I think it's the perfect starting point because many people are saying that this day will be remembered as the day Donald Trump won the election. So let's go over what happened on the 13th of July, 2024. Donald Trump, the former president of the USA and the Republican nominee for the 2024 presidential election, was addressing a campaign rally near Butler, Pennsylvania, when he was shot in the air. Luckily, he survived the attack, and the incident became a turning point, as you mentioned, Amina, in the American election, as we will explain shortly. But it also fueled conspiracy theories from both sides.
The attack was called a deep state assassination attempt and a failed coup by some, while others labeled it a stage assassination.
Yeah, it seems that nobody is immune to misinformation and conspiracy theories these days.
Yes, I was actually honestly surprised by a few commentators who are usually not so quick to jump to call things fake, going on about how gunshots really sound like and whatnot. Then I think about everything that's happened between now and 2020, and I get the appeal. There are a few things that can mislead people into believing conspiracy theories, such as a few cognitive biases like confirmation bias. A need for understanding and control, which I think we all feel like we're kind of lacking right now. Mistrust of authorities, which again we can all kind of relate to that one, and a few other things.
Yeah, and even though we can confidently establish the facts now around the Trump's assassination, and we can say, no, it was not staged, and no, it is unlikely to be a deep state coup, does it really matter in the grand scheme of things?
No, it does not. That's the thing. Whether it happened or it didn't happen, whether it was a bullet or a piece of glass that lightly grazed his ear. If you feel like you need to get into the specifics of how much it really hurts, you not only lose the argument, but you feed into the whole persecuted brand that him and his party have been constructing. So all you do is confirm that and rally more people around him while losing credibility. We have to remember that Trump is currently indicted and convicted on multiple charges, and he's been saying all along that it's a witch hunt. So if you call his assassination attempt fake, you vindicate him, you play into his version of reality.
What really matters is the triumphant image of Trump bleeding from the head, raising his fist with the American flag flying behind him. It is powerful, it is symbolic, and even heroic, if we can say so. Honestly, you couldn't have produced a more dramatic photo, even if you tried. It's the kind of thing no communication campaign could ever hope to pull off.
The picture taken by Pulitzer winner Ven Vucci is incredible in its composition. It was on the front page around the world. It is objectively powerful and one for the history books. What will be remembered. It's what it symbolizes him, age 78, getting right back up to yell out, fight. The only way you fight symbolic and psychological influence is by grounding yourself in something more powerful, which is to not feed it, as we're currently seeing with Kamala's counter campaign. And I say counter because her whole campaign seems to be look at me, I'm not Trump.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, it's the picture. It's all revolves around the picture and also the context in which this one has been produced. Back then, we have to remember that Trump was rallying against Biden, who was portrayed as frail and trembling. And then comes this picture of his opponent to contrast that image of Biden and showcase the endurance and courage of Donald Trump, which explains why it gave him an immediate boost in the polls.
It definitely did. But as we saw and often see with such events, the boost was only temporary. What it could be compared to is rally around the flag syndrome with Trump and his party replacing the flag in this metaphor. Um, it's a diversion during times of crisis that makes people overlook all of the ugly parts. But as the effects died down, he seems to be workshopping his next hook to keep the momentum going.
Arguably, it could be sustainable if the Democrats didn't finally realize that Biden is no longer a winning horse, and therefore he has been replaced by his VP Kamala Harris. If anything, I would say that the assassination attempt created the urgency to shuffle their cards and pick up someone more likely to destroy the campaign of Trump that revolved around the old and weak Biden.
I think the rush to replace Biden was one of panic among the ranks of the Democrats. I may be a bit controversial here, but I personally believe that replacing Biden was not the right move at the time that it happened, if only they had done that much sooner, especially under the circumstances of how that happened. But the question here is why her?
To understand why her, you would have to follow the money and how the donors and pundits have pressured Biden to step down. Many people don't seem to remember, actually, or maybe to realize even that if it wasn't Kamala, the Democrats would lose the money that has been already raised on the ticket. Also, we have to remember that Biden uh, took a hit in the polls way before the Trump's assassination attempt, initially due to his weak performance during the presidential debate. But many members of the Democratic Party continued to support him for valid reasons. Um, because as we know, a sitting president has higher chances of being reelected, and a new candidate means running a completely different kind of campaign, as you mentioned, Amina. Uh, I have to agree with you. It was rushed, but and almost irrational, but it was inevitable, I would say.
Yes, in fact, if you look at US history, whenever the nominee for the incumbent party was not the sitting president, they almost always lose. It's a big pressure for Kamala, who must be aware that she has big shoes to fill and wasn't given enough notice.
Mm. But as we said, the donors of the Democratic Party left no choice for Biden and his supporters when they threatened to withdraw their funds from his campaign. And I would actually ask the question if their pressure came or their decision was informed enough, or was it only influenced by what the media has been reporting and saying? I don't know if they really have concretely they can access the polls and see for themselves how how things are really. But anyway,
I see your point here. You know, in a climate of polarization where people now tend to vote against rather than for candidates, this is even more true. Kamala's nomination certainly came with a boost in the polls, converting a number of double haters, which are people who like neither Trump or Biden. But again, if we compare with 2020, the gap between Harris and Trump is still not enough. Although I would not trust polls just yet. This boost is normal when a new candidate or alternative is announced, but at the end of the day, it is only about the electoral college and a few swing states.
absolutely. And the campaign is officially underway. So let's speak a little bit about it. Donald Trump has chosen J.D. Vance as his VP, a well-known figure in his own right, a former military veteran, a best-selling author, and a classic embodiment of the American dream. having risen from a dysfunctional family to the top of the social and political ladder. Kamala Harris, on the other hand, has selected a lesser known yet equally intriguing figure. We're talking about Tim Walz, the Minnesota governor. He is a respected leader with a background in education and military service. He's known for his pragmatic approach and focus on unity. However, he's not as famous as Josh Shapiro or the governor of Michigan. We can get into the detail of their choices later on, but
Just FYI, because I found this funny, but also very insightful about Trump when interviewed and pressed about Vance's remarks about women. And this was very recent. He said that at the end of the day, the VP doesn't matter.
yeah, did they say that really?
Yeah.
Oh my God. So what's really striking here is their respective campaigns, as you said, which arguably aren't that different from each other. It's what I would call Trump the weird versus Kamala the crazy. So
And that's why we need to cut through all of this noise and actually need to see that debate happen between Trump and Kamala. For me, to be honest, it is a toss unless she secures two keys. The first is to find her voice, to develop some powerful appeal, a brand that is her own, if you will. To just repeat that people should vote for her so Trump doesn't win is not enough. It is actually rather awkward, especially if it appears that her nomination is solely based on on fear of losing donor funds. The second is a military win. We thought that could be the brokering of peace between Palestine and Israel. Netanyahu's constant sabotage of any peace efforts is making that very difficult and perhaps too difficult to the point where we're seeing a sudden shift to an offense attack on Russia just this week. By Ukraine with the support of the US. Would a confrontation with Putin be the easier route to secure a win? Very arguable. Also, last week we started getting hints of a looming recession. It's tough luck if it starts to be felt in the months leading up to the election because it will be put on the tab of the current administration. But we know for sure that Trump will be exploiting all of these weaknesses.
yeah, I mean, you made very good points here, Amina, and I want to just reflect on a few of them. Um, First of all, you mentioned the debate. I think, yeah, we definitely need that debate to happen. And then also it's really interesting for me to see how it felt like there is no hope to solve the crisis in the Middle East anymore, and therefore they are shifting their eyes towards Russia. And it's really interesting to know that it's easier actually to confront Putin than to put some pressure on their ally in the Middle East. On that note, many young voters are already holding her accountable for the carnage in Gaza by being part of the Biden administration, and I think she was trying to appeal to those voters by distancing herself from Netanyahu's speech to the Congress or before the Congress. But then her answer to the protesters during one of her latest campaigns, when she said, "Oh, you can only say that if you want Trump to win," I don't think that lives to the expectations of these young voters. As you said, you can't build a campaign around vote for me because I'm not Trump.
Right. So, at first glance, we really see identity politics being central to the Trump versus Harris election. And I don't think it's ever been as crucial as it will be in the next few months. So, what do you think about that, Ghada?
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I'm afraid, though, that Kamala is playing into the hands of the Trump's campaign by merely being a woman of color, and a descendant of immigrants. I just want to recall what happened recently. Some of the right wingers have already started calling her the DEI hire. By the way, DEI is diversity, equality, inclusion. For those who doesn't understand, and it's in reference to her party's potential tokenization of her gender skin color and broader identity politics and how she fits into that. Also, we have to remember what Trump did. He questioned her blackness. I know it's very inappropriate, but it is Trump being Trump. He also pretended not to know how to pronounce her name in an attempt to point out that she's not American enough. And then you have his VP or potential VP, J.D. Vance, making comments about childless cat ladies. Again, very inappropriate, but um, if her policies push identity politics forward, it can be tricky because, in essence, identity politics is really about tailoring policies to specific groups rather than the whole population. Adding to that, all what I've mentioned about her, by merely being her, she's playing into the hands of Trump. I don't know.
To be able to successfully play the identity politics cards, you really need time to develop that, which is something that she doesn't have. So what we see instead is her attempts backfiring, like when trying to appeal to Black Gen Z voters, she brought Megan Thee Stallion to twerk on stage, which reinforces negative stereotypes and sends a message that Black voters are not serious people. So again, identity politics is, as you said, catering to subgroup specificities without the requirement or the afterthought that it serves the bigger group. It's a product of postmodernism, post-colonialism, and critical race theory. I don't want to lose our audience, so I won't get into it. But if you guys like this stuff, please let us know.
Please let Amina know.
So, if everything is a construct, then the way we talk about things and people, the manner in which we pose a problem, even, is what creates its power. But it does beg the question of practicality and cause legitimacy. We have to understand that to break long, deeply ingrained and coercive, institutionalized, structural, and normative powers, we have to disrupt the status quo. This is how you challenge terrible things like white supremacy, inequalities, sexism, etc. But what about double standards? And what about universal values? The winning candidate is going to be the one who can somehow cater to the subgroups, but unify them so we can all continue to coexist because we can't not coexist, right?
It's not it's no easy task, Amina, particularly when we consider the impact of the presidential election on Congress. People often forget that the congressional elections are arguably more vital than the presidential race itself, and they are profoundly shaped by it. So usually the party that secures the presidency often influences the composition of the Congress with far-reaching consequences for future policies and governance. But I'm sure now some of our listeners will be thinking, why on earth are these two foreign women so interested in the American election?
First of all, I live there. I'm an immigrant. I have a business. I pay my taxes. I am directly affected by the policies and leadership in the US, yet I can't vote. And I think there isn't enough focus on us as potential future voters, the active non citizens who are now stuck between a rock and a hard place, which, in my opinion, is short sighted. We do represent a sizable chunk of the population after all.
It goes even further than that. Many people around the world would be deeply impacted by the outcome of the American election, even though they don't get to vote. For instance, in Gaza, the lives of Palestinians might depend on the US brokering a deal or funding the UNRWA, yet they have no say in the American election.
I know I said it's a toss for me, but which way do you think the Americans are going to lean?
Oh, I wouldn't bet my money on any of the candidates at the moment. I would just say this election is getting dirtier by the day, and I would keep an eye on it.
We hope you found this episode insightful. We'd love to hear your thoughts and feedback.
Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share if you are watching us on YouTube, and join us next time so we continue to explore the complex world of jet lag politics.
Thanks for listening to Jetlagged Politics on all the platforms where you usually listen to podcasts. Our next episode is in a couple of weeks. Let us know what you'd like to listen to us discuss. And until then, please take care.
Bye.
Bye bye.